I'm delighted to welcome you to this special edition of RTMatters, where candid conversations take place about what matters most to respiratory therapists. I'm Patrick Dunn, the host of RTMatters, and for this special episode of RTMatters, we're taking a temporary detour from our usual format of having invited guests participate. And I'll explain more fully in a few moments what we mean by that. But first, before we begin this special episode, a few housekeeping details to attend to, especially for our first-time listeners. First of all episodes are available on our dedicated website, RTMatters.com. It's an open access, no charge, no subscription fee, no membership requirement. All you need is a listening device to be able to download. Secondly, when you access the website on your tablet, your laptop, or your desktop, you will see at the top left side of the masthead next to the logo, the click Send Your Feedback. That's right, we want to hear from you, our listeners. We want to have your thoughts about this or prior episodes, what we can do better, or perhaps requests for material that you hear us talk about during a particular episode, and I'll be happy to send you additional information. Most important, though, we want you to let us know what is most important to you as a respiratory therapist. RTMatters is here as a sounding board for all respiratory therapists, so remember, let your friends know about this resource as well. This is the virtual voice for RTs everywhere. All right, now, why this special episode and why the absence of an invited guest? Well, funny you should ask. The main reason is because following several attempts, we were actually unable to find a guest willing to tackle the topic with me for this particular episode. Specifically, the impact of artificial intelligence on traditional practice of respiratory therapy. Now, being on the receiving end of those respectful thanks but no thanks, I was really not all that surprised, especially with all the unknowns, concerns, misconceptions, and not to mention outright fear about the role AI will play in healthcare in general, and more particularly, how it will impact our beloved profession. Simply stated, those who I invited candidly admitted that they didn't yet feel qualified enough to have such a discussion, which is totally understandable. Which, by the way, I quickly learned firsthand when our production team decided that this was an important matter for RTs and one worthy for one of our infamous candid conversations. Now, since I too only had a very cursory grasp of AI, it also required me to prepare myself as best I could, so I would at the very least sound like an informed host. So off I went on my own self-discovery trip to learn what I could about AI in healthcare, and to see if it was something I could become comfortable with enough so I could have candid conversations, albeit in a very elementary level. And wow, what an eye-opening experience that turned out to be. Now, my pitch to the aforementioned invited guests, but alas, with no response, was that at this point, since so few of us really know much about AI, together we could both do a deep dive and at the very least get a pretty straightforward try to begin the process of improving AI literacy for our RT listeners. And what we would like to do is basically define what all those crazy acronyms and related lingo means in plain English, to try and get a grasp on how AI is already being used in healthcare, and how the evolving role of AI in healthcare is being envisioned by the architects. Our production team felt that such a basic introduction to AI would help assuage the fears, misconceptions, and other anxieties that many of our RT listeners feel about what we are now calling an eventual inevitability. And that is, like it or not, AI is soon coming to a healthcare facility near you. In fact, it might already be there if you look around or know where to look. So not being one to waste considerable efforts and energy I expended on my deep dive into AI, it was decided that I should share my findings in this solo episode. But as we soon learned, given the complexity of the subject, there is no way a single episode would even begin to address the myriad nuances surrounding AI, especially as it pertains to traditional respiratory therapy practice. So this is actually going to be part one of many more parts to follow. And we begin by laying the groundwork for future episodes of this important, disruptive, yes, transformative technology as events unfold. More importantly, what we hope to see as the use of smarter algorithm devices becomes more widespread throughout the practice of respiratory care, an emerging acceptance of the technology, and accompanying that trend, a higher comfort level that result in willingness by others to discuss on RT Matters the ins and outs of their experiences with AI. So let me look back and begin when I first became involved with AI for the most part. And this is basically going back to my early years, back to the original Star Trek TV series that ran from 1966 to 69 before several films were made. And in that episode where the chief engineer Scotty would use voice commands to interact with the Starship Enterprise's computer system. Scotty and the computer were always successful in handling Captain Kirk's and Spock's urgent issues. Next came along in 1968 the science fiction film from Stanley Kubrick, 2001: A Space Odyssey. The film follows a voyage of astronauts, scientists, and supercomputer HAL 9000 to Jupiter to investigate alien monoliths. HAL, supposedly an acronym for Heuristically Programmed Algorithmic Computer, was in control of all systems on the spacecraft. And HAL was therefore programmed to perceive and feel emotions. He spoke in a soft, calm voice in a very conversational manner, even when he eventually malfunctioned, placing the human crew in mortal danger. Bit of trivia here. Note that the letters HAL each precede the letters of the top computer company of the time, IBM. Rumor has it that this was a playful jab at IBM, but Kubrick always denied the link. So how about today? How about AI in our everyday lives? Well, like it or not, AI is already quite prominent in our everyday personal lives. Here are a few examples that I'm sure you'll be able to relate to. When you use your smartphone to ask Siri or Alexa a question, they both use AI to understand voice commands, answer questions, and control smart devices in your home. According to my research on Reuters recently, it's reported that Siri responds to over 1.5 billion, that's billion user requests per day. That translates to 99,000 requests per minute. Clearly, such volume is way beyond what any human-driven system could ever handle. And when you use Google Maps or any other navigation app, or do a Google or Yahoo online search, you are again to be the beneficiary of AI. The same when searching Amazon for those particular items you're looking for. There is called search engine optimization. And as you no doubt notice, once you've selected and placed your order in the cart, before you reach checkout, you receive several pop-up suggestions for so-called related products that other customers have bought. That's AI basically helping you spend more money. And if you've ever wondered how or why your Spotify, Apple Music, or Prime Music streaming service suggests and then creates a personal playlist for your enjoyment, well, that's AI reviewing your listening history and generating a somewhat familiar playlist, not to mention driving royalties for each tune you listen to each and every time, whether it's one that you selected in your download or AI generated. Well, how about social media? Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, yep, AI is there. Aside from hitting you with ads for products that you neither need or want, it's there to enhance platform functionality and to personalize the user experience and engagement. In other words, keep you engaged and keep you signed on. And finally, if you believe the hype, we are on the verge of soon having autonomous, by that I mean entirely driverless motor vehicles, passenger cars as well as 18-wheelers, on our city streets and interstate highways, only made feasible with AI. On a personal note, at this point, I'm not so sure how I'm going to feel seeing 18-wheelers barreling down the interstate next to me without a human being in the driver cab. But then again, we already have Waymo, a totally autonomous robo-taxi company and a Google subsidiary operating in several West Coast cities. So to sum up, AI is already a very prominent part of our everyday lives, and the usage continues to grow exponentially. So as you can see, it's only a matter of time until we see AI entering our professional lives as well. Now, let's take a look at AI in healthcare. And basically, this is to help you prepare for the conversation that you're eventually going to have. First of all, artificial intelligence is a global term describing the ability of a computer to respond to a stimuli, whether it be a keyboard or verbal. It's basically using a superpower computing technology, which is increasing exponentially every 6 months, to make machines smart and to make consistent. And AI is considered by many to be an accelerator for innovation in healthcare. So it's basically an umbrella term for several different elements, which we'll talk about in a moment. Now, an algorithm, for all intents and purposes, it's a digital roadmap telling the computer where to go and how to get there. Basically, the programming that the software engineers develop to tell the computer how to analyze data, how to make decisions based on that knowledge, and basically even how to learn to teach themselves. Which brings us to the next term, machine learning. Machine learning is that subset of AI that focuses on developing computer systems that are able to learn and adapt through the use of highly complex algorithms and statistical models. And they use that to analyze and draw inferences from patterns of data. So smart computers are actually really smart. Now you hear the term chatbot. That's basically short for chatterbot, and this is the computer program embedded in all major messaging applications designed to simulate conversations with human users over the internet. So that's your Siris, Alexis, and others who basically talk with you over your device. Let's pause here for a second and reflect on just how much data is now available on the World Wide Web. As we now know, artificial intelligence, machine learning are fully capable of mining that enormous repository of all sorts of data from all corners of the globe, and are able to do so in a fraction of the time it would take a human. Accordingly, the most important and vital consideration that should always be in the back of everyone's mind, how much of what is out there on the web in cyberspace is actually real, factual, and accurate, versus that which is quite the opposite, especially when at first glance it appears to be truthful. Thus, ensuring the validity and reliability of any database that is accessed will always remain the number one priority. Now, a few more relevant terms with potential uses in healthcare. You'll hear people talk about conversational AI. This allows the machine, as we mentioned, to respond to human language naturally. It uses natural language processing and machine learning to analyze input, generate responses, and simulate human-like conversations. In healthcare, conversational AI, with its ability to offer instant responses and personalized interactions, is being touted as something that would enhance patient engagement, making the patient a more active participant in their healthcare journey. I'm not so sure all patients will be pleased to have conversations about their health conditions with a computer, but nonetheless, it is becoming increasingly prevalent. Now, the next term that's important is predictive AI. This is the process of using statistical analysis and machine learning to identify patterns, anticipate behaviors, and forecast upcoming events. It's used to predict future outcomes, causation, and risk exposure based on historical or current data. In healthcare, predictive AI, by analyzing lifestyle factors, genetic predispositions, and health history, could help identify patients at high risk of developing certain diseases. It could also alert providers to chronic disease progression or the likelihood of a patient being readmitted to the hospital. So it's predicting future events based upon the past. Now, a generative AI, unlike analyzing existing data, generative AI is a creative tool able to generate new original ideas and content, would that be text, images, videos, etc., based on patterns learned from existing data. In healthcare, generative AI can be used to interpret radiographic images, enhance diagnosis and treatment, accelerate drug discovery, and optimize clinical trials. It's also being applied to use to automate routine tasks like scheduling appointments, processing claims, and managing patient records. And to be candid, this is also where some students go to get those papers written that are assigned by their teachers. Ambient AI, on the other hand, is the integration of AI seamlessly and unobtrusively into everyday environments that is responsive and adaptive 24/7 without requiring direct user interaction. Just think of ambient lighting. You walk into the room, the lights go on. You leave the room, the lights go out. In healthcare, ambient AI is able to create detailed, accurate clinical notes by listening to physician-patient conversations or analyzing clinicians' actions in real time. And this is a real time saver for physicians and other prescribers, and is much better than having a scribe follow along and take notes, or having the physician or the other provider sit down and then log into the computer and put in the information that they gain during the patient interaction. Well, how about AI in respiratory care? So far within respiratory medicine, the main application of AI and machine learning has been the interpretation of imaging, chest x-rays, CT scans, and I recently just saw an article where they're now having machine learning to interpret echocardiograms. It's also being used for the analysis of lung pathology to rule out or to confirm pathogenesis, and it's also being used for the interpretation of pulmonary function tests, especially those that are poorly defined tracings. And by analyzing patient history, symptoms, and response to therapy, AI algorithms can also assist in developing tailored and personalized treatment plans, especially for patients with chronic conditions such as asthma, COPD, cystic fibrosis, interstitial lung disease, which of course is the core of what we now call patient-centered care. So now the million-dollar question and concern for most RTs. Will autonomous ventilators replace our well-defined bedside role in critical care? Put another way, will the next generation of super smart ventilators be able to quickly and correctly respond to episodes of asynchrony or airway obstruction or accidental disconnects? What about other measures such as ensuring lung protective ventilation is available at all times? What about determining if the patient is ready for ventilator liberation? Well, so far, based upon my rudimentary self-discovery journey into AI, I doubt we'll see that just yet, but it is coming. There's no doubt that human eyesight, however, will always remain a coactive equal in AI in respiratory care. And basically, that oversight in respiratory care should be provided by people who are experts, and that would be us. We're licensed pulmonary care providers that we now know to make the right decisions. So there's always going to be a role for the respiratory therapist to provide oversight for any smart device that's going to be used to take care of patients. And you must understand, to make your role firm in this, you need to be polite, but also be persistent. You are obliged to do so. You cannot turn over this type of technology and just walk away from it. We are technically licensed to do so. Now, there are a lot of concerns being talked about in terms of the role of AI in healthcare. And I just want to review those with you briefly to show you that this is not going to be a duck walk. It's going to be very, very difficult, and it's going to be very challenging. Aside from the huge capital investment required, and then the ongoing financial commitment, here, and in no particular order, are the major concerns surrounding the use of AI in healthcare that are going to be part of your adopting this technology. The first is data privacy and security. Specifically, cybersecurity threats, whether it be ransomware or malware, leading to data breaches and care disruptions. The use of third-party AI vendors adds further vulnerability, as each institution, each organization have varying degrees of ethical standards and practices. And HIPAA remains one of the big episodes that we have to be careful for, because we are responsible for protecting patient information as caregivers. Another concern, biases and fairness. Some AI algorithms are trained on data, and such data might reflect existing societal biases. Therefore, AI systems may perpetuate or even amplify these biases, resulting in under or misdiagnosis for certain patient populations. The third cause, ethical considerations. AI decisions can raise ethical dilemmas, especially when such decisions and recommendations conflict with patient family preferences. The risk of depersonalizing the healthcare experience cannot be discounted. So again, there will always be a role for the human providing oversight. And in respiratory products, that would be the respiratory therapist. Another concern is the reliability and accountability of the data. AI systems can make errors. They call those hallucinations, and these could potentially lead to patient harm. Ensuring your continued reliability, accuracy, and accountability of AI systems is crucial for maintaining trust in the technology and ensuring continued patient safety. And finally, transparency and explainability. Many AI algorithms that we're seeing today, especially deep learning proprietary models, are really black boxes and not easily understood. Such unknowns can hinder both legal accountability and scientific understanding, and it's given rise to the demand for more explainable AI. So as AI machines come into your department, when the vendors come in to start talking about it, you want to make sure that you understand the algorithms that are being used to make that machine do what it's supposed to do. Well, to summarize then, there's no doubt that AI is a transformative innovation in healthcare in general and respiratory care in particular. It is not being universally viewed by all. I mean, some people are very upset and really are very fearful. However, in spite of your misgivings one might have, it is very important to avoid being labeled a Luddite. Now, this is a term that was used back in the early 1800s in England when gangs of English textile workers vandalized and destroyed newly installed equipment that was designed to automate the weaving, knitting, and cropping tasks that displaced manual laborers. And they were very feared. They were losing their income. They were losing their jobs. And they looked at those machines as taking away their independence. Today, the Luddite term is used to describe someone who disdains new information technology. So you really want to make sure you're not going to be labeled a Luddite. Most important to realize that AI in healthcare is intended to be a support tool, not a replacement for human input. And AI will always need strong, ongoing supervision. And to that point, our friends at the Joint Commission recently announced their initiative to establish and implement evidence-based guidelines for the use of AI in healthcare operations. And I suspect we might see that sooner rather than later. Epic, likewise, has just launched a new program they call Launchpad to assist its users, organizations, to seamlessly integrate generative AI into their respective electronic healthcare records. So there's all kinds of work going on in terms of getting AI ready for its imminent position in healthcare. So let me finish up part one on this very superficial dive into AI with the following quote. The only constant is change, and the key to success is adapting to that change. And that brings us to the end of this special episode of RT Matters, part one of many more to follow. I want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. But remember, we now more than ever want to hear from you about what you liked, what we can do better to make RT Matters work for you. And you can also request any additional information from any episode that we'll be happy to send to you if you let us know that your needs are there. Simply log on to our website, rtmatters.com, and click on the feedback tab on the top left side of the masthead. Also, be sure to tell your fellow RTs about this newest professional resource. Now, in the meantime, go out and be the best possible respiratory therapist you can be, because our patients deserve nothing less, and as a highly trained, licensed healthcare professional, we expect nothing less from you. And this is my old military training kicking in. After your shift, think about the next shift coming on. So always leave your workspace equal to, or in some cases better than you found it. Make it a clean, professional, and complete handoff. Now, until next time, be kind to yourself and to others, and remember, RTs do indeed matter. So take care, be safe, and we look forward to having you back here real soon. Bye for now.